What's going down, Faithful? Welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to be covering this Mike Tomlin situation in Pittsburgh. So I talked about the Antonio Brown situation. Obviously, we know right now that Le'Veon Bell is probably not going to be in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform anymore. So is Mike Tomlin to blame for all this drama in Pittsburgh? This is what I think. I think 100%. I think it starts with the coaching, and from there on, moves out and gets put into a bigger problem. But Mike Tomlin is not doing a good job in controlling these players' emotions. Mike Tomlin is to blame for all of this scandal in Pittsburgh. I mean, you can't really blame the players because the players aren't happy. So, should the Steelers fire Mike Tomlin? This is the thing about Mike Tomlin. He is a hell of a coach. Granted that I'm not a big fan of him, but he's one hell of a coach. And you can't take that away from Mike Tomlin. He's put the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs and a top contender pretty much every year since he's been in Pittsburgh. He's won Pittsburgh a Super Bowl, so he's did a lot of good things for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. But at the same time, there's a time when it's enough. There's a time when there needs to be enough, and there's a time where Steelers need to realize that Mike Tomlin is not controlling these players well, and Mike Tomlin is pretty much making the Pittsburgh Steelers' best players just walk. So really, in all reality, I think Mike Tomlin is the only person to blame. And now, basically, in my perspective, I think Antonio Brown wants out of Pittsburgh. I don't know how else to put that. I don't know what else to think of that. But in my opinion, I think Antonio Brown does indeed want out of Pittsburgh. And I don't really know how else to put that. I'm not really sure on if you can blame anybody else other than Mike Tomlin. But at the end of the day, I think the Steelers, if this keeps happening, if Antonio Brown ends up wanting to be traded, I think that's when you fire Mike Tomlin, because they need somebody in there that can control the players. They need somebody in there that doesn't take. I think Mike Tomlin's too much up Big Ben's ass. I'm not even gonna lie. I think he's too much on the Big Ben bandwagon. That all these other players, his top-notch players on this team, are just kind of fading away from him. And we've seen it with Le'Veon Bell. Now we're seeing it with Antonio Brown. Could this Antonio Brown situation, could he be acting like this because maybe he didn't support the move on Le'Veon Bell? Possibly. I think Le'Veon Bell was I think he was more being petty and selfish to not take the money that Pittsburgh was offering him, and he turned down, I know it was over $10 million. Maybe it had been like $14 million. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but maybe Antonio Brown is upset because Mike Tomlin is taking Big Ben's side and he's being one-sided on players, and that's my only guess. But Mike Tomlin is to blame for all this Steelers drama going on. And that, I don't know how else to put it. I don't know how else I could really, I don't know who else to blame in the Steelers organization. It's Mike Tomlin. He's pushing all these top-notch players on the Pittsburgh Steelers away, and there needs to be an end to that. And I think the only end to the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I think Mike Tomlin has never really had that control to calm down players, to, make everything, make the whole team come together as one. I don't think he's never really succeeded in that. And now you have your best player on the football team in general, in my eyes, wanting out of Pittsburgh, and that's in Antonio Brown. So should the Steelers fire Mike Tomlin? To summarize this video, if Antonio Brown ends up wanting to be traded, absolutely, you got to fire Mike Tomlin. Now, this is the thing. I get it. Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I get it. He's won a Super Bowl at Pittsburgh, and I get it. He usually takes Pittsburgh into the playoffs every year and makes them contend every year in the AFC North. But there needs to be a time and there needs to be a limit to where you say, okay, you can't keep continuing to push all these players out because he is to blame for this. He does not have control over his players, and he's making all these top-notch Steelers players want out of Pittsburgh, and that's not good because you let Le'Veon Bell walk. Okay, Le'Veon Bell's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next season. Now, your best player on the football team, in Antonio Brown, is wanting out. Who else do you have? Who else is there to blame in this scandal? It's not Antonio Brown being selfish. It's because Antonio Brown is caught on to Mike Tomlin's gig, and he's not digging the gig, and now he wants out. And a preferred destination to the is his number one destination if he's to be traded is the San Francisco 49ers. For one, they're sending him across the United States to the Bay. He's getting out of the AFC. He's not going to a divisional rival in the AFC North. They're sending him to the NFC West, which wouldn't really affect the Steelers. So really, in all reality, I think Mike Tomlin should be fired by the Pittsburgh Steelers if Antonio Brown ends up requesting a trade or Antonio Brown ends up just wanting out of Pittsburgh. I think he wants out already. I'm pretty sure a lot of people think and already know he wants out. But Mike Tomlin is to blame for this Steelers drama. There's nobody else to blame. It's nobody else's fault except Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin can't control his players. Mike Tomlin can't have that general control over his players to make everything happen and make everything revolve around just the team and not one player. He's never had control over that. He can't do that, in my opinion. And I don't think that the Steelers are going to hold up any much longer. I get it. He's a winning coach. He loves to win. He's succeeded numerous amount of times in the NFL and with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there needs to be a time where you say, okay, you're letting all these best players on our team walk. We can't have this because all we're doing is just going downhill. And I get it. Le'Veon Bell may have been selfish, whatever. But Antonio Brown's not being selfish. He is fed up with all this drama going on. He's fed up with the Steelers organization, and he's fed up with Mike Tomlin. And when you look at it in the perspective of, okay, well, we let Le'Veon Bell walk, whatever. James Conner, he's a stud. He's having a good season. I get that, but when Antonio Brown's wanting out, that's when the general manager and the Steelers front office needs to look at it in the perspective of, okay, this coach is making all of our best players leave. We're not going uphill in any way possible. We have a quarterback that's aging, possibly retiring in the next 2 to 3 years. Or we can't just go under a complete rebuild, because if the Steelers lose Antonio Brown, I feel like that's going to make more playmakers on the Steelers want to leave. And then the players on the Steelers are going to see that, Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell wanted to be traded. And a lot of the Steelers players probably look up to Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, or did look up to them. And now they're going to be like, well, if our best player sees it in a perspective of, he wants out of Pittsburgh, then we might as well go, because for one, I look up to that player. For two, we're not going to be anything without our top players just being either traded or just getting into these feuds and this drama going on. So I feel like if Antonio Brown walks, I feel like more Steelers players are going to catch on to what Mike Tomlin really is doing, and I feel like it's going to make more Steelers players want to move or leave the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I feel like and the Steelers are going to go downhill from there. So if Mike Tomlin does not get this Antonio Brown situation figured out, and if he don't take this into a deeper thing than football, then you got to fire him, because the team's just going to go downhill. It's already going downhill. They haven't made the playoffs this year. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I think Mike Tomlin, if Antonio Brown ends up leaving Pittsburgh, I do believe wholeheartedly Mike Tomlin should be fired from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will he get another coaching job somewhere else? Probably. He's a winning coach, but this Steelers team is just going downhill with all these players running out because of Mike Tomlin. He has no control over the players. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But that's my thoughts on if Mike Tomlin should be fired, and that's my thoughts on if Mike Tomlin is to blame for the drama in Pittsburgh. So let me know what you guys think down below. And with that being said, I'm NinerJ49, and as always, go Niners. And hopefully, Antonio Brown requests a trade because his #1 destination as of right now is the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm going to tell you one thing right now. If the Niners get their hands on Antonio Brown or even Odell Beckham Jr., we'll be sniffing the playoffs then if we get a defense. So with that being said, it's NinerJ49. Thank you guys for watching the video. Thank you guys for the support recently. And make sure you guys subscribe before clicking off this video. And as always, go Niners.